Thanks for watching. So, Miha, who is my organizer, now Colleen, who's watching, she was my previous and original organizer of my workshops in Oaxaca, and Miha has been passed the baton, and now Miha is, she has, well, one full one under your belt, right? And
yep.
One full one, and moving very quickly to the second one in another less than a month.
Yes.
And then, of course, we're
So
trying
soon,
for,
so soon.
we're going to be moving on to February for number 3. So, so pretty exciting. So, do you want to say
Super
anything
exciting.
do you want to say anything before I jump in?
Yeah, this is, I mean, you know, it's a dream job for sure. And and I'm super excited about, I mean, I love being there for Gala Getza, which was unique and something I hadn't done before. And I love being there for Dia de los Muertos all the time. But I am super excited about Carnival because it's kind of a newer celebration, and well, not really a newer celebration, but like I think newer to visitors, and so I think that it's building a lot more momentum for festivities, and it sounds like it's super fun. So I'm excited to go and find out more. Check it out.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited too. It's one of those events that I was doing New Orleans for so many years, which kind of takes place when my retreat would always sort of happen like roughly during the same kind of time. So I think that I think it's pretty exciting to be in Oaxaca during that time, where it's a totally different sort of vibe. I mean, totally and not totally, which we'll sort of get into. So, all right. So to begin, where we are doing this is in Oaxaca, which Oaxaca is in sort of lower-ish, west-ish Mexico. And it is one of those places that is, I don't know, I've been going there for, I think it's been 30-ish years, I think is how many years I've been going. And I loved it the minute I stepped foot in there, and I've been going back ever since. And you know, now it seems like 2-3 times a year is what the goal is. So, so it's just a wonderful place. And the reason I love it so much, which is part of the reason that this event is so exciting, is because it's one of those places that it's a city, and depending on who you talk to, it's a city that is anywhere between 800,000 people to 200,000 people. Because and seriously, people don't seem to know exactly. And I think it's because of how they're measuring. So I think the city itself is like maybe 200, 300,000 people, but then it's sort of the surrounding areas might make it more expansive, because it probably includes the Central Valley when they do close to 800,000. But what's cool about it is you have all these villages all around it, and these villages are very traditional villages, and all that art sort of creeps into the city, but it's also a very contemporary city. It has, I mean, it's still very oldish in feel, but the art is very contemporary. So you got this great mix of old and new. So obviously, I've been doing Day of the Dead there for, I don't know, close to 20 years now. And it's, it is a place that seems to always have celebrations going on. So without further ado, let's jump into my screen share, and we'll do our little slide presentation. All right. So we're going to start off with the whole "what is Carnival" thing. And you might, if you can't see it, you might have to change your screen. I think you might be able to pin me, might be one option as an option, and that will just keep the image on there, or you can do speaker, will usually work. But that way you can see all the images, and I'll pop back on periodically. But here's an old image. This is not from Mexico, by the way. This is probably from France, but basically Carnival was, it's basically what we're most familiar with is the whole thing of it being associated with sort of the precursor to Easter. It sort of right before Lent. And the thing is, it is one of these events that is sort of the last hurrah before Lent. So basically, Lent is where you sort of give up stuff. It's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go start fasting now and give up all the goodies. And so the idea is you'd have this big celebration before Lent. So you do all these crazy things, wear masks, things like that. Now, I'll get back into that a little bit down the road. But basically, hold on a second here. There we go. Here's some more revelers. But basically, the idea is something that probably happened pre-Christian. So right now, I'm just talking about European stuff. We're going to move to the indigenous stuff in a little bit later. But initially, we'll talk about the sort of the European stuff. But they suspect that, you know, this was sort of a type of thing, like a lot of the traditions that you would see in any culture. It sort of started from something and then evolved to something else. And Carnival is one of those things. So most likely, they think the European Carnival started from Dionysia, or it could be Saturnalia, I think is how it's pronounced. Both cases, there's sort of these celebrations. Saturnalia would be, timing-wise, would be closer to Christmas, though. And Dionysia, which is after the goddess, the Greek goddess Dionysus, would be closer to spring. But in both cases, there's sort of like a bit of debauchery going on. And some people sort of think that it is sort of a couple different things could be happening. It could be that it was sort of a way of everybody sort of like, okay, we've been doing this stuff of wintry things, and now we are sick of the wintry things. It's time to take off all our clothes and run around. Where the hell is spring? So that's sort of one of the things that they think that might be one of the reasons that this sort of celebration took place. Sort of a, please bring on spring. Winter should be over by now. There's actually something similar in Hungary with Busos. They're Busos devils, in which they're these devil masked people run around and they're there to basically scare off winter. So kind of the similar type of thing going down. Now here's, of course, this is a Rembrandt version of Dionysia, them partying and reveling, and of course the god Dionysus is hanging out. Now, of course, we can move over, we don't have to go far in the States to see basically what that evolved to, which would of course be Mardi Gras, which, by the way, translates to, in French, Fat Tuesday. This was from one of the parades in Mardi Gras, and of course there's another parade of Mardi Gras. Now, basically, the etymology, this actually kind of cracked me up. The etymology of Mardi Gras is basically, if you translate carnival is basically farewell to meat. It's like goodbye meat, and that's basically what it is. It's like everybody's like, all right, I'm putting on my fancy hat. I'm bringing my little fancy parasol and smoking a cigarette. That you can see there. Got the little cigarette woman there. And I'm gonna just do everything that I'm not supposed to do, because tomorrow I gotta do all the good stuff. So it's kind of the eat, drink, and be merry, because tomorrow I fast. And so that is what's going on. Now, let's move on to Oaxaca. This is in the pyramids of Monte Alban. I know some of you watching are familiar with this little view. Some of you have been trying to get to this view for a while, not to pick on anybody in particular, Kathy, but you've been trying to get to this particular view. But this is Monte Alban. These are the pyramids up above the city of Oaxaca. And so let's talk a little bit about sort of the Latin American, why like a place like Oaxaca would have Carnival. Well, first off, it has something to do with the fact that, you know, it's, here's more Monte Alban with a bad grainy photo. It has something to do with, obviously, the Catholic Church rolling into town, and all the holidays sort of got absorbed by the indigenous folks, whether they liked it or not. It's like, here you go, this is what we're celebrating. But that's not necessarily always the case. They do think that there was some sort of version of this going on in Latin America pre-Christian, pre-Spaniards. There was a lot of mask wearing. That's one of the things I love when I go down there, is you just see all these masks just everywhere, you know, wood carved masks, paper mache masks, all sorts of masks. And that is a tradition that's been around in this region for a super, super long time. And basically the idea with this, and you know, an interesting thing happened. Somebody had made a comment when I had posted some images from Carnival in Oaxaca about what's with all the Satan stuff. And it's not really about the Satan stuff. It's a lot of it has to do with the animal stuff. Because what a lot of these people, what was really important with a lot of the traditions there had to do with animal spirits. So Spanish involvement, you wouldn't see cow masks. You wouldn't see these horny masks at all. You'd see monkey masks and you'd see jaguar masks. You'd see bat masks, but not Batman necessarily, though there is kind of a Batman in Mexico. Drawing a blank of what his name is now, but in any event. But basically you'd have like all these different masks that would represent the critters that are roaming around, because they were important to the people. So now one of the areas that we are planning on going to, speaking of that, is in this area called San Martin Tilcajete. And this is probably about 20 minutes-ish outside of Oaxaca. And it sort of depends on what traffic's like and how many topes you have to go over. Topes are like the speed bumps, which it seems like they always talk about trying to get rid of these speed bumps, but they never do. But so going out to this valley, it's a very pretty valley, it's very pretty dry, it's very rural, very agricultural. And you come into this town, and this is what you'll find. You'll be it's not a big town. I think, I don't know, 1,500, 2,000 people, I think is what my understanding of San Martin is. But this town is predominantly, other than agricultural stuff, it predominantly revolves around what are called Alebrijes. And Alebrijes are these crazy creatures. We'll get to those. Let me scroll to those in a second here. These crazy creatures that are carved out of copal wood and then hand painted. So here's, and traditionally what you would find, and this is true, and I think for the most part, in a lot of these more traditional villages, it would be the women who would do the painting, the men would do the carving. I think some of that's changing now, but I think very slowly. This is a very rural town, very rural village. Now, I should mention, and here's some of the carving. You see, this is sort of where it starts. So you get these really nice carvings, and actually you can see the wood that starts with, the copal, which is the same stuff that they make if you go to, like during Day of the Dead, for instance, you'll smell the incense on the graves or on the altars. That's also made from the same wood, made from the resin. So now I'm going to do a little bit, not a ton, but a little bit of backstory on Alebrijes. So Alebrijes, so what they're making are the Alebrijes. These are the little crazy creatures, okay? This is from Mexico City, however. Now, a lot of people think that Alebrijes, the tradition started in Oaxaca. It did not. You might find some local artisans who will try and convince you otherwise, but it's not true. This tradition actually started in Mexico City in the 30s-ish, And it was from a guy named Pedro Linares, who basically he was a paper mache artist. You would make, piñatas and things for Jesus. They'd have Judas that they would burn for religious celebrations, and that was their family business. And one night he had a fever dream, and in this dream he had all these crazy creatures sort of screaming at him, and they were screaming Alebrijes, Alebrijes, and they were all yelling. It was driving him crazy. Couldn't take it. How do I get out of this crazy place? And he was having this really, really bad dream because he was sick. He had this crazy fever going on, and he came trying to run out of this insane forest, and eventually he runs into a man who says, "Oh, you're here too early." And he goes, "Oh, there's the door." So he comes up, his fever breaks, and he's all better. And then he basically, from that point, he started creating these crazy things. And I think the first one was sort of a chicken dragon thing. Now, that's actually Pedro Linares' son. I can't remember his name offhand, but we went and visited the family studio. They still make these things. These, by the way, these images that I was sort of scrolling by, this is from the Alebrijes parade that they have in Mexico City every year, right around the 24th-ish of October. And they're big, massive floats. But yeah, so the tradition started as a paper mache thing. Now, it eventually moved, we'll get to that in a second, moved to Oaxaca, basically in the 80s, when a filmmaker, I believe she was English filmmaker, who was featuring Pedro Linares, Manuel Jimenez, who was a carver, a wood carver from the Oaxaca region, and Maria Sabina, who was a textile artist. She was doing a film on these guys. And what happened is Manuel Jimenez from Oaxaca, who was the wood carver, saw all these crazy painted creatures and goes, "Hey, those would look really cool on the wood carvings." So in the 80s, that's what happened. Now, this is Jacobo and Maria Angeles, and they are probably the most renowned Oaxacan Alebrijes makers. Their stuff is in the Smithsonian. I think they're actually, if I remember correctly, last I heard, they were opening a gallery in Chicago. So they have, I think I met Jacobo back in the 90s sometime, and he pretty much looks the same. I don't know if he's dyeing his mustache or not, but he looks kind of the same. But in any event, so yeah, I've been seeing him rise to fame through the years, and every year it seems like he and Maria both, they had a lot to do with the movie Coco, the Disney Day of the Dead film. They did a lot of the inspiration when they had some of the crazy creatures. So this is just to give you a sense of the type of stuff that Jacobo does. It's really fun. I wish I had a better photo, but it's very, very detailed. And the stuff that you'll see in San Martin Tilcajete, the stuff in Oaxaca, a lot of times you'll see the crazy animals, and the designs and the crazy colorations. But then what you'll also see is the patterns, which often are based on some of the indigenous designs from the region. So, and I'm pretty sure Jacobo is Zapotec. Thanks for nodding, Colleen. And so a lot of the designs and patterns you would probably see in some of the Zapotec designs traditionally. So now that leads us to the processions and celebrations in San Martin Tilcajete. Now, this is, here's a great example of one of the masks. Now, I should mention 99.9% of the photos you're going to see are probably due to Sue Urquhart. Sue has been coming to my workshops for many years now, and then going to Oaxaca on her own a lot as well. An amazing jeweler. If you're not familiar, look at Lulu Bug Jewelry. But she is also an amazing photographer, and she does all these photographs, most of which you're going to see on her iPhone of all things. But these were some photos. The next bunch of photos are things that she took when she was in San Martin Tilcajete. So here's a great example of one of the masks that are used during the celebration. So, and this is like, you know, Carnival, it's a big parade, it's procession. In this case, it happens during the day. Now, some places you'll find Carnival doesn't necessarily happen during the day. It might be evening, but in San Martin, it's during the day. And here you can see another great mask here. Also, you'll notice painted in sort of the Alebrijes sort of fashion. And more, of course, of the wood sculpted sort of carvings that you'd see. I just love the combination of the masks. And this one I love. If you notice, not only the carving's great, but I don't know if you can see it, but the painting of the owl on sort of the brow is just amazing. And then of course the body paint. But just these great costumes. The only thing I always wonder about when we've got this wood, this copal wood is, I mean, I suppose it's lighter than some wood, but it's still, that would be a heavy mask to be dancing around in. That would not feel so great when after a day of revelry. So here's another great mask. Looks kind of like a krampus. And these, of course, we've got our hyena boys, or actually those would probably be the Mexican hairless dogs, most likely, is what those guys would be. Now, one of the things we're going to start seeing, now this is a great photo. I just love this, the jaguar, by the way. I should mention the jaguar because the jaguar is really, it's really kind of an important thing that you will see a lot of in terms of masks. And this might be the only image I have with a sort of a jaguar mask on it. But a lot of times when you see jaguar masks, you'll see them all over Mexico. You'll see the eyes will be sometimes mirrors. And here it looks like they're marbles, in fact, but they're always reflective. And the reason for that is because, like, if you think about when you come across a cat or like a jaguar, I know that you're probably not running into a jaguar late at night. I don't know where you live, but I'm assuming you don't run into jaguars very often at night. But if you did, you'd probably see the reflection in their eyes. And so a lot of times those mirrors or any sort of reflective things in masks is sort of to represent the jaguar. Once again, very, very common in terms of the spirit animal. And this is just an eye guy. I mean, what's not to love about an eye guy? I think Sue actually had posted a video of this guy too, and it's great because he's sort of like Mr. Jiggly Eyes as he's sort of walking around. And what was the movie? Everything Everywhere All at Once. I see this guy and I think of that film. But yeah, this guy is great, Mr. Eye Guy. No matter where, it's like those paintings where you say, no matter where I go in the room, it's like it's following me. I feel that way about this guy. So, and here's some folks getting ready for the big celebration. A lot of body painting. And now we're moving into the section of Asados. I remember the first time I saw the Asados, and let's get to, here's some right here. Okay, we'll go back to some of these photos in a minute. Basically, Asados translates as the oily ones. There's a great example of an Asado, the oily one. I call them oily boys. And I remember the first time I saw these oily boys, I think our group, it was during Day of the Dead, because they come out all times of year now. But they came out of a garage, and a bunch of these devils they were totally covered. That stuff on them is not paint. That is motor oil. Okay, so all that black stuff all over their skin, they rub their skin with this motor oil. So don't hug them. Unless you're, I actually thought maybe it might be a good idea, Miha, to, get those little painting smocks that wouldn't stand out or anything, right? So it's like, oh, they're the tourists. They're in the little painting smock things, little zipper, little Devo suits. But yeah, the Asiatados, those guys are great. We'll go back to some of these other ones, but you'll notice, like, what I also love about a lot of these costumes is also how they're fabricated. So like here, I don't know, these horns are obviously attached to like a baseball cap. And you can see like the baseball cap was the base of that, and probably a straw hat added to that, and then the horns were added on top of that. And that's just a straw hat, of course. But let's see what else we have here. Well, yeah, more Asiatados getting ready, and they aren't always covered in motor oil. A lot of times it is just paint. But let's see what else we have here. Here we got some more Asiatados. I just love this stuff. Just all the colors that they use, I think is just fabulous. And one of the things I love most, which I alluded to a minute ago, was all the use of just random materials. It's sort of like whatever happens to be laying around. Okay, we're gonna make our outfit out of that. And it looks like that's a bicycle helmet, if I'm not mistaken, that has bones tied to it, which really makes sense, actually. It would be comfortable. And another Asiatado, an oily boy. Now look at that helmet. Now that is cool. I have no idea what that's made out of. It could be wood carved, but that is great. And one of the things that's super awesome is that, as with most of the celebrations in Mexico, if not all of the celebrations in Mexico, it is super family friendly. And what you see, like the kids, and the parents, and it's a family situation. It's a family thing. And it really, in this case, you have all these devils and monsters and creatures basically sort of bunch of revelry happening to celebrate the last day before because most of these traditions, though they did start as an indigenous thing, most of these villages are Catholic, so they do probably follow Lent, and so these guys are just partying before they have to fast. Here's a great one, and this has to be heavy. But though that could be paper mache. I think actually, as I look at it, it looks like it's paper mache. But don't hug that kid. I'm telling you, man, that your white blouse is ruined if you hug that boy. As cute as he may be, don't do it. Don't do it. More costumes, more celebrations. Notice a lot of incense floating around too. Okay, so we're going to move to another village. We're going to move to, not far, just down the road, in fact, from San Martin Tilcajete, is the village of Zaachila. Now, Zaachila, as close as a lot of these villages are, they have very different traditions. You'd think, oh, it's 5 minutes down the road, and you think, oh, they're going to do the same stuff. Absolutely not. So in Zaachila, that they have is these sort of masks. Usually it's some sort of mask. And the masks, by the way, I should mention that they think that a lot of the masks in pre-Hispanic traditions have to do with the days that were considered bad luck days. So think of like think of like Friday the 13th. So on a day like that, you might wear a mask to confuse the evil spirits. So basically you're wearing, it's like Halloween. You wear a devil outfit to scare off the devils. It's that sort of premise. So the masks are there to confuse the bad spirits. Now, this guy has his mask on. Now you'll notice he has these weird little egg things, and those are eggs. Those are hollowed out eggs, and then they're decorated. And there's nothing inside. It's not like it's candy or anything. But the idea with those is if you have your eye on somebody, if you take a fancy to someone, you would, and I don't know that it has to be romantic, but it could be somebody you admire. You would pass that around and say, "Oh, here's your little egg wand," I don't know the name of the egg wands, but they're kind of cool. So you got the little egg wand that you pass around to people that you like. And here's a little devil from Zaachila who has a handful of egg wands. Now, one of the things that you'll notice, you don't always have to. Now, I know that with the retreat that we're doing in February, we are going to primarily San Martin Tilcajete, but a lot of these folks from Zaachila, you will see them in the city because a lot of these parades and processions and costumes come into the main city, and so you'll see lots of celebrations happening during that. So here's a little kid ready to pass out his little egg wands. These guys are also from Zaachila. So here we've got, check out the outfits. All right, so you've got a hat. So the mask is made out of a painted hat. So the red hat, so where his eyes are peering out are the sort of the sides of the top of the hat. And then it looks like he has like a soccer ball maybe on top of that. But I just thought that was, I saw that photo, I go, what the hell is that mask made out of? So yeah, so he's looking out of the top of that hat. So, and same thing with the guy behind him. He's wearing several hats actually. So more masks and egg wands. And they don't always have to be devils. Devils just seems to be a very common theme. Though traditionally it probably started with being sort of cows. Here's a little devil, more egg wands. I'll have to find out the name of that. All right, so here's my favorite. So these guys are also from Zaachila. These guys are totally awesome. These are zancudos. These are stilt walkers. So zancudo basically means mosquitoes, because the idea is that, you know, mosquitoes have these long legs. And so these guys are not just stilt walkers, but these guys are crazy stilt dancers. These guys are amazing. We see them in the city all the time, year round, actually. You'll see these guys dancing around. But this is a tradition that is specific to this town of Zaachila. This is one of my favorite shots that Sue has done, by the way. This is a great example of them getting ready for their little jig. But this is a tradition that started because these guys started dancing in this village because they would use these stilts to go cross streams and arroyos. So it's just something that, you know, these were part of their everyday life, and then it became part of their celebrations too. So you go and cross the stream to get to the other side wearing these stilts, which I don't entirely understand how that's done. I would imagine it would work, but pretty amazing. But yeah, these guys are just fabulous, fabulous dancers. And these guys are actually in Oaxaca in this photo. This is from actually Day of the Dead. You'll see them all year round, doing their little jigs. And just as I'd mentioned earlier, these are really you'll see a lot of kids, parents, adults, everything just joining in for the festivities. Now, before I leave the villages of Oaxaca, one thing I should mention is one of the cool things that I was talking about, like with Zaachila, how all these different villages, as close as they are, they have these different traditions. So about 10 minutes out of the city, San Bartolo Coyotepec is where you would find, this is from the artist Carlo Magno, you find black pottery. So you can see it more traditionally with their pots and things, but this is the artist of Carlo Magno, which is, I just love his work. And then of course, if you go down to, I can't remember this artist's name, but if you go down to, towards Mitla, this is where this artist is. I cannot remember her name for the life of me, but she's fairly renowned. And of course, Teotihuacan, which is rug weaving, which I know Colleen and Mija, they are addicted to all the weavings that come from that area. And of course, this is the process that you make. Now, I know that a lot of these places are places that we go whenever we wander down there. I'll take a look at the itinerary to see all the places we're going in a minute. But now I decided to take you a little bit around Oaxaca, just sort of a gander. This is just one of the boroughs in the Oaxaca area, Halatlaco. This has become kind of the hip and happening area. Actually, there's the Krampus Barber is in that area. I don't know why they have a Krampus Barber, but I guess it sort of makes sense. You know, Krampus might need a trim. There is the Krampus Barber in Halatlaco. But it's just a beautiful colonial town that always has something exciting going on. It's just a stunning location. Now, I'm going to take a quick look at our itinerary and see what we have going on. Some of the places that we are, I mean, obviously, just walking around town is a pretty amazing thing. You know, this is the Santo Domingo Church. This is probably where we're holding the workshop. This is maybe about a 5-10 minute walk away. Just a beautiful setting. One of my favorite places for sunrise and sunset. It's just a gorgeous location. I mean, you can't go too far without getting a good photo in town. And of course, if you're into street art, the street art, especially in the area of Xochimilco, which is also very close to the hotel that we stay at, that has tons of street art, but all over the city. There's a ton of really great street art. Let's see, on the itinerary, I noticed that one of the days we're going to Tlacalula, which has a great market, which I don't have any photos of Tlacalula. On that day, we are also going to the rug weaving villages, Teotihuacan de Valla. And what else? I'm just going through some of the other things. Got obviously San Martin, Xochimilco, which was on here. And I'm just quickly going through some of the celebrations. One of the things that we're going to find when you go to Oaxaca is that a lot of the celebrations just sort of happen. So there's a lot of things that it's hard to actually get on the itinerary entirely, because you just sort of hear parade happening and it's going to be going on. Let's see, I'm just scrolling through some of the stuff quickly. The workshop. Xochimilco. Now, I had mentioned the archaeological tours. Now, I know that there is one place that I was talking to Mija about. I don't have any photos of it, but it's close to Tlacalula. That is one of the earliest churches in the Oaxaca area. And we're going to be looking at going to there as well. And more street art. As you can tell, I like the street art. And I like the Santo Domingo Church.
Tlacalula actually also has a beautiful 16th century church right where the market is. So we'll see that as well.
Yeah. Did you find the name of that, Mija?
No, I didn't find the name of that church you're talking about.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Colleen knows.
I'm going to unmute you, Colleen. Colleen's going to.
It's Tlacachawaya.
Okay.
Tlacachawaya, that's it.
Yes.
And you enter it like right across the street to the right, where if you went to the left, you'd go to Teotihuacan.
Right.
You go to the right.
So the cool thing about that church, by the way, is that it actually has a courtyard. I don't have any photos of it on this slideshow, but it has a courtyard that we'll go back. We'll go to something that's.
Oh, there's one.
There's it. So it was one of the first churches that would have a big courtyard, and that was a trick the Spanish did to sort of lure the indigenous people into worshiping. So they created this big courtyard because the indigenous people were used to worshiping outside, and it was a way the Spanish sort of tricked them, or were trying to trick them into worshiping the new gods. Now, In that church, they found some relics hidden inside the walls when they were doing restorations, which implied that the indigenous people, which I believe would be Mixtec in that area, I'm guessing. Yes or no, Colleen? No?
No,
Zapotec?
Zapotec.
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 Okay. So, all right, Zapotec. So they think that those were placed in the wall so that when the indigenous Zapotecs would go and worship, they would be still being devout to the old gods, right? The other thing that they were noticing in this particular church was a lot of the design work, which have sort of almost like a Baroque pattern to them, sort of seemed kind of like some of the indigenous Mesoamerican designs that might actually be faces of the pre-Hispanic deities. So kind of cool. So anyway, we'll take a peek at that when we're there. Hey, look, and there's my wife, Andrea. So this is, I thought I'd show some of you guys the workshop space where we're going to be working in. This was from the workshop that I was just at a couple months ago with Andrea, and we were doing a duo class. And so we have a nice big space. And Sue, by the way, our photographer, is on the right there, busy working away. And Sue and Katie, both regulars. And of course, I would be, I couldn't talk about Oaxaca without talking about mezcal. And this is a little place just around the corner from our hotel. They have a little tasting place. You want to taste the different types of mezcal. Now, a lot of people don't like it, but it's funny because after a few trips to Oaxaca, those same people seem to love it. So I'm not sure what happens. But
C2 is one of my faves.
Yeah, that is a great
brand.
You've been into that shop, right? Right, Miha?
Yeah.
That is a great little gift store too. Not only can get you
Yeah.
mezcal, but they have some awesome little gifts in there. So,
yeah, I love the new location. Their other one was tiny.
yeah.
So,
And of course, food. This is from Los Danzantes. Los Danzantes is where this actually meal is from. This is one of the great things about over the last decade, I'd say. There's some really beautiful, delicious food, which really does a nice job really incorporating sort of the traditional flavors of the area, which I think is pretty cool. And this was from the last class that I was at. This was from the duo class that Miha organized and Andrea and I taught together. So nice group. One of our, I think that was our last meal, if I'm not I mean, not ever, but it was the last meal of the trip. Everybody survived the meal, I think. So that was
the
good.
Last Supper.
Last Supper. So nice view of the city. Now, I thought I'd show a little bit. We should probably talk a little bit about what's actually going to happen there. So hopefully there'll be some interest in people wanting to join us. I'm doing this class called Altered Egos, and the idea is to create sort of like Carnival, where the masks are sort of an important thing. The idea is to have sort of a creation where the heads can change. Now, I know normally somebody going in a parade wouldn't change their head, they would just change a mask. So we're going to take it a step further where you could actually change your head out. And here, by the way, that is the jaguar, the jaguar. And you see how the eyes are sort of almost sort of hollowed out, and that's the idea of it being reflective. And there's of course thing, and I'll jump back in here and stop share just so I can show you the actual piece in person. And I'll try and maybe I'll ditch the background. But the idea, oh, there we go. We'll do it this way. So the idea is that you could take these out and then screw them in. And so, and the students are going to make this out of found objects. We're going to make it out of clay and of course, a lot of painting. And the idea is that these things. These could be just, whoops, one character, could be many characters. I seem like 4 different outfits for Carnival would be a good amount. But that's what we're gonna make. So with that said, that is my little slideshow presentation. So, and if anybody has any questions, or Miha, I should let you, if there's anything you wanted to add to that. Jump
Yeah,
in.
I mean, as far as where we're going to be going, we'll head out to the villages for Carnival, and then also to Tlacalula, and the market there is fantastic. It's really one of the best markets in the Central Valley. It's really well, well attended. It takes up like several blocks in the city, and you can find just about everything there. And so it's really, really fun place to go. And one of my favorites, and you get to like hang out in the, we get to go by the church there and hang out in the courtyard there, and it's just really lovely setting. And we're also, as far as like our time in the city, one of the days we're going to spend just doing like a city tour, and there's so much to do. We're definitely going to hit the Rufino Tamayo pre-Hispanic art
Oh, that's what I forgot.
museum.
It
Yeah,
reopened.
it just reopened after the pandemic, which I'm so grateful for, because it's really one of my favorite museums in Oaxaca City. And it's there. We'll know more about what we're going to visit when we actually get closer to time, so we can see what's happening at that time. What exhibitions might be going on at the galleries or museums and things like that.
And I should mention also with the Rufino Tamayo, now that museum is, now Rufino Tamayo is a very famous, I guess you'd class him as sort of a modernist painter, I guess, era-wise, but very famous Mexican artist, but it is actually his collection of indigenous art. It was, he's not around anymore, but it was indigenous art that he had collected while he was around. So so it's not contemporary art or semi-contemporary art. It's actually Mesoamerican art from the area. So.
Yeah, it's all pre-Hispanic. I think it started in like 1974. He started this museum, and it's an amazing collection. And it could take us a little time to go through there, because there's just so much to see. A lot of clay figures, stone carvings, like all kinds of stuff.
Now, if I'm not mistaken,
a lot of inspiration for masks, I would say too.
If I'm not mistaken, that building, one of you guys will probably be able to correct me on this. Was that not, which is kind of ironic if it is true, but I seem to remember that was actually the headquarters for the Inquisition, the Oaxacan Inquisition.
That's true.
That is true.
Yes, and it's also the first building in Oaxaca to get electricity.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
And which is amazing, because who knew the Inquisition had electricity?
Right. Well, they could get you.
Yeah. No, so yeah, I did remember hearing that, and I couldn't remember if that was, so that, which is, as I said, sort of ironic that, that now it's an indigenous, all this effort being put to, sort of convert all the so-called heathens, right, by the Inquisition, and then now it's an indigenous museum. So I think it's rather apropos. So
it is. We'll also be checking out a printmaking collective, and on that day, and that's definitely something to really take note of in Oaxaca, is that there's a lot of street art, and it's there's a lot of it is done with printmaking, and so you'll see they'll do anything from smaller pieces to pieces that are like 8 feet tall, and or larger, and they're all done on big presses. And printmaking's become really incredibly popular in Oaxaca, especially among young people. And there are more and more printmaking collectives that have been popping up over the last decade, and it's really prominent contemporary art form, and kind of formed out of kind of the basically a revolutionary art. It's still used as a revolutionary art form. So any kind of anti-government sentiments, or any kind of issues that the people want to speak about, this is kind of the art form that's most commonly used to do that. So yeah, we'll be visiting a printmaking collective as well, and so we can check that out.
Yeah, it's going to be great, and the weather will be
wonderful.
Yes.
Yes.
Best way to get away
especially-
from the winter,
Yes.
cold winters.
Yeah. So the other thing that's kind of a plus, one of the things that Miha and I were just talking about, and I know, Colleen, you've been going there during February for many years.
Right.
It's a lot less tourists. Like, one of the things that's happened over the years, and maybe I just should have kept my mouth shut about Oaxaca over all these years. Yeah, but it's become very, very popular, and especially during Day of the Dead. And so we've noticed the prices of airfare going up every year. So one of the advantages, and Miha did a quick check on Travelocity, and the prices are in fact considerably cheaper that time of year. So in terms of people being interested, if budgetary stuff, and I know budgetary stuff is a concern, one of the advantages is, airfare will be considerably less expensive, because Oaxaca. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Colleen.
And you can get a restaurant reservation.
A lot easier. Yes, that's true. I know
you can go to the really good restaurants without, a lot of duress.
That photo I showed of the really nice meal, that is a hard restaurant to get into. And well, especially when you got a big group like us, it's kind of impossible. But yes, getting into restaurants is a lot more tricky during Day of the Dead, to be sure. Everybody's partying, I get it. So
yeah.
All right. Anything else that we need to cover?
Well, I'll tell you one more thing about San Martin Tilcajete is they have a mock wedding on that Tuesday. And you go to the house of the bride, who is male, but dressed as a bride. And everybody's partying. They're very friendly. They invite you to dance. It's really fun. And then the groom comes to pick up the bride in an ox cart, and they ride through town and go to the municipal hall where the mayor marries them. And then they leave from there, continuing the party, and have a huge meal at it's sort of like San Martin's event center. And there's a big meal where everybody goes to. It's really fun. It's quite the party.
I'd heard about the mayor thing. I didn't quite understand that it was part of the wedding thing, but I knew that you go to the mayor's house, and which I think is very fun. So
right. No, it's great. And during that time, the devils are running through the streets with whips, cracking at your ankles, not us, but the locals are all trying to evade the devils who are running through town. And the last time I was there, Jacobo was one of the oily boys.
Jacobo actually dressed. I have never seen Jacobo out of that white shirt ever. So I cannot imagine him as an oily boy.
He was an oily boy. It was great.
That's awesome.
And he was very friendly. He remembered us, He go, "Oh, hi, how are you?"
Nice.
That's awesome.
So he takes part.
I need a photo of Jacobo as an oily boy.
Yeah, I'm not sure I took one.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
It was before I had, it was before I carried the iPhone around everywhere.
Yeah.
It was a real camera, which,
Yeah, right.
nowadays.
All right.
Anyway, it's a fabulous event.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So, all right. Anything else, Miha, or do we have it covered?
I think we have it pretty well covered. So if anyone has questions, definitely ask. I'm answering some questions in the chat now.
Okay.
So
Yeah, if you have any questions, jump in. And I see there's some people asking how many people can attend. We have, up to 24 people. We have a big classroom. And it used to be smaller, but now we have a big one. So we can take quite a few. And let's see, and there was another question. I see you're answering some of this, but I'll answer some of this just so everybody can know, because I know that Heather had asked about non-participating partners. Yes, I call them hanger-oners. So basically they can, if they want to do all the events and things, they can do that. It's just an adjusted price.
Exactly.
They aren't paying for the workshop, they're just paying for the tours and the stuff that's included. So anything else that I'm missing? Any other questions pop up? Were there any questions in the deMeng Workshop Junkies group that's popped up? Did you see?
Nope, no questions. Just a comment from Beverly Pack. Thank you so much for sharing beautiful photos and great information. I hope to join you someday. Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, we don't have anything else. Then I suppose we will call it. We will call it a day. It was a. Let me just double check that we. I'm just reading some of the text. They are hanger-oners. Yes. So. All right, kids. I did record this. Where I'll put this, I'll probably link this somewhere. Maybe I'll put this on Vimeo, but then I'll. Or Facebook or YouTube or something like that, but you'll be able to link it. If you wanted to watch and share and tell everybody about it and convince your wealthy uncle to pay for your trip. That's always good. Always good to have a wealthy uncle. So, but yeah, so I'll post this in the various groups, and hopefully I'll see some of you guys there. I know for sure I'll see Miha there. So
yes, you'll see me there.
All right, gang. Thanks so much.
Okay.
And thanks for watching, and see you guys somewhere soon.
Right.
Adios.
Thanks, everyone. Hopefully we see ya.